Welcome to the Friday Happy Hour with victory strategist, award-winning author and your happy hour host, Annmarie Kelly. Each week, Annmarie chats with women who have reinvented, started over or wrote fabulous next chapters. They share how they overcame their midlife challenges and how you can too. So kick back with some good happy hour something to drink and enjoy today's show.
You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour with me, Annmarie Kelly. I'm that recovering good girl and your victorious woman empowerment partner. This is a place for us victory chicks and you men who care about us. Meet on Fridays to chat about things we can do to achieve our goals, overcome our challenges, and get empowered so our lives can sparkle. Thanks for joining me at Happy Hour today. I'm glad you're here. You know, victory chicks and you guys, for this brand new baby year, we have a new performing arts center in town. And performing there monthly is an improv group called Better Than Bacon. I don't know if you've ever seen them. I have. And today I have 3 of the Better Than Bacon troupe here. Lauren Henry, Dan Stapp, and Susan Price are coming. And I asked them because not only are they funny, but doing improv is something of a reinvention for each of them. And each of their stories are interesting. So they're going to be here, and they're here, and they'll be joining us in just a couple of minutes. I wonder if any of you got the opportunity to watch the inauguration. I know so many people don't like President Trump, but a lot of people didn't like President Obama either. And before that, people didn't like George W. or Bill Clinton. So I think it's sort of how our politics go, isn't it? Still, I watched a little of it today, and when I was in D.C. over Christmas, it was kind of exciting to see the scaffolding going up at the Capitol. And this morning, as I was watching it, I loved the Mormon Tabernacle Choir singing America the Beautiful. And then that young Jackie Evancho, what a voice. She sang the Star-Spangled Banner. So both of them brought tears to my eyes. Well, I have to be honest with you, both of those songs usually do bring tears to my eyes, because they both remind me of how grateful I am, the daughter of Italian immigrants who came here with nothing to be born in this country and now live in beautiful Chester County. I get choked up, and I felt that way even when I didn't have a dime to my name. And, okay, that's neither here nor there, but I just do feel that way. But then, between those 2 songs, between America the Beautiful and the Star-Spangled Banner, was the swearing-in ceremony and President Trump's speech, which was all about putting America first. Now, I didn't hear a lot of commentary, except that CNN thought it was one of the most radical presidential speeches ever. And, I must be kind of dumb, because I'm not sure how, if you want our country to be first, that idea is radical. And he really trashed on the people in Washington, like, he talks all about draining the swamp. So, maybe it's because at the end, Trump said something that no matter what color you are, we all bleed the same red of patriotism. And I like that. So maybe it was radical. I don't know. I might be missing something. Or maybe CNN is missing something. I don't know. I'll have to wait and hear what the pundits are saying. Still, whether you like our new president or not, you can be very excited that we have that peaceful transition of power. That doesn't happen every place. And I don't know about you, but I love seeing all that pomp and circumstance. And last night, when I saw Lee Greenwood performing, I was really excited. Now, not only do I love his song, God Bless the USA, but I met Lee Greenwood in New York a couple years ago. And I have to tell you, I have seldom met, at that level of celebrity, someone who is more natural or more genuine. He's like the kind of guy you could sit down with, have a few drinks, and swap some good stories. In fact, that's what we did. Not the drinks part, but the stories. He's a real treat of a guy. And I'm glad he performed. I never remember so much hate towards so many celebrities who were being bullied into not performing at the inaugural events. I'm not feeling good about that because, when you are doing something that is presidential, it's a big deal. For me, a couple of years ago, I received the President's Call to Service Award from President Obama. Now, he isn't my favorite president, but until noon today, he was my president. And a presidential anything, an award, performing, whatever it is, it's a big deal. And it's one of those things that's awesome on the resume, and down the road it'll look good in an obituary. But bullying celebrities into not performing because you don't like who was elected, I think that's terrible. This week it was Jennifer Holliday who backed out. And if you didn't see her on The View, I tried to get the link so you could see it. But go to the View's website and listen to the Jennifer Holliday thing. She was excited to perform and to be sharing her voice and her talent. And she said she saw it as being part of the healing of the division in our country. So how could that be bad? And she has sung at, I think she said, every presidential inauguration since Ronald Reagan. That's both Bush's, the Clintons, the Obamas. And Holliday said she was especially shocked by the hate from the black community. She said they called her the N-word and called her Aunt Jemima. It was kind of shocking, I thought, and a sad commentary. Of course, last night and today, there have been protesters in the street. And frankly, I think we can celebrate that too, because where else do you think those protesters would be able to stand on the sidewalk, hold up their signs, and still get the protection of law enforcement while they're doing it? Few other countries around the world are okay with its citizens openly dissenting and dissenting loudly as today's protesters were. Tomorrow is going to be another group. It's called the Women's March on Washington. And I don't know if you heard about it, but it's not just in Washington. It's in a lot of cities around the country. So I know a lot of women who are going, and one of them said she wants to go because she wants to make her voice heard. I get that. And it's about women's empowerment. Now, I'm big on women's empowerment. But I'm not going to Washington because I'll be in New York City. And there's a march too there. A sister march to the Women's March on Washington. And I was going to go to it, but this week it became clear that it's not for all women, just certain ones. So here's what happened. This week, the organizers of the Women's March on Washington unpartnered with a feminist group from Texas called the New Wave Feminists. The organizers of the Women's March on Washington uninvited them because they're pro-life. Now, actually, what they said was, and I'm going to quote this, the Women's March platform is pro-choice, and that has been our stance from day one. We look forward to marching on behalf of individuals who believe that women deserve the right to make their own reproductive decisions. End quote. But listen, don't reproductive decisions include pro-life decisions? It has to, doesn't it? I'm a pro-choice woman. I don't like abortion, but I think a woman should have the right to choose abortion or not choose abortion. It's her right. But on that issue, and I have wonderful, smart, and savvy girlfriends who are both pro-choice and pro-life. There's nothing bad or wrong about any of the women in either of the groups. I like both of them. But now I feel like my pro-life friends are being discriminated against. And listen, if the only women's rights that can are pro-choice rights, that group should have called it the Liberal Progressive Abortion Rights Women's March. That would have been honest. And plenty of women would still have wanted to be involved. Thousands and thousands. But here's what I think is the worst of it. Uninviting a whole segment of women, or excluding, not uninviting, but excluding a whole segment of women, feels so much like high school. You know, when the mean girls were in charge, and you could only go to the party when if you were in the right clique, well, that's kind of what this feels like to me. Victory chicks and you guys, that's not the women's empowerment I embrace. I look at that and I call it bullying. The Women's March on Washington organizers should know the difference. Because right now, I don't think they are any different than the misogynistic men who, they say, want to take away women's rights. If they're excluding people who don't agree with them, how are they not just as misogynistic as they say Donald Trump is? In my book, they are. They are just on the other side of the same coin. And shame on them. I don't like the mean girls. So anyway, yesterday I decided to pass on the bullying brand of women's rights. I won't be part of the Women's March in New York, but I will be there. And here's what I'm not passing on. I'm not passing on the real reason I'll be in New York. One of Joseph's clients is going to the March on Washington, the Women's March on Washington, and she had tickets to go see the Broadway show Front Page. That's one with Nathan Lane and John Goodman and John Slattery. She can't go there because she left yesterday for Washington. So she asked Joseph if he wanted the tickets to see that Broadway show. Joseph said he would take the tickets, and guess what? Joseph's taking me. And why not? He already knows I'm a good date. So we're going to the show, and then we're going to Sardi's. I'm so excited. And it's nicely timed, too, because my birthday was yesterday. So we'll take a quick run up to New York for the show and then come back. And then on Sunday, I'm having breakfast with friends. Not bad for a birthday treat, huh? That's what I like about having a weekend birthday. I get to celebrate for days. I get to celebrate right now with you, both celebrating my birthday and the fact that we have 3 members of Better Than Bacon here. You know, there's that resident comedy troupe at Uptown, our new performing arts center, and they're going to be there next Friday, and they're going to be there several Fridays. They're going to tell you more about how many those last Fridays of the month. But Lauren Henry, Dan Stab, and Susan Price will be here right after the breaks. So listen, go get some good happy hour, something to drink, and we'll be back with Better Than Bacon. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour.
When you wished you had more time for yourself, and now you have it, but you notice you're keeping busy with stuff, but that stuff isn't making you feel happy or filled up? And when you think about what would make you happy and filled up, you get stuck or feel overwhelmed. And then you go back to what's more familiar, more comfortable, even if it's not making you happy. Wouldn't you love to find a way to start making sense of that deep discontent you're feeling? Well, you're not alone. I'm Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. And I know there's a place for you, one that other women have found to be both inspirational and empowering. And it's the Victorious Woman Project. Go there now and get on my mailing list, where you'll be the first to know about my upcoming online workshops, teleseminars, and more. And while you're there, take a couple minutes to look over my blog. You can download some of the free stuff I have for you and let it get your creative juices going. I'm looking forward to meeting you at the Victorious Woman Project. And that's at www.victoriouswoman.com.
Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with the very active Better Than Bacon, Lauren Stab, Lauren Henry, Dan Stab, and
we got married.
We just got married. Congratulations!
Yay! I met Lauren through my friend Teresa Homo-Crowninger, who you might remember. She was here for my Christmas show. And then Maureen Inglesby and I went to see Better Than Bacon at the Kennett Flash in December. And, you know, your whole troupe, you were nonstop funny.
Thank you.
So tell us, how long has Better Than Bacon been around?
We've been around. We started rehearsing in June 2010, and our first performance was March 2011, I believe.
Yep.
So
7 years.
7 years.
Almost 7 years.
But you can take us back even further than that.
Go ahead.
Because we all met taking night classes. Well, not all of us, but a majority of us met taking night classes, and I think 3 of us met in one class, and then we met Susan and Jerry in the second class that we took, and that started about 2007, I think. Or not, yeah, so 2000. So it's been 10 years since a lot of us have known each other.
And you were saying to me earlier, Lauren, that it's very unusual for a comedy troupe to be together for this long.
Yeah.
And why is that? Do you just get, like, unfunny?
Not unfunny, but I think, it's like a marriage. You've been together and you're together all the time, and we practice once a week, and sometimes heads butt, but there's 11 of us all together, and it's just been pretty much a love fest for family.
That's nice. See, to me, when I saw you in Kennett, I thought you were really like a well-oiled machine, and I thought that must be really hard to do that because it was good. So you went to night school?
Mm-hmm. just, evening classes and for improv comedy, and that's where we met.
I don't know what you were thinking to do that, but but I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's kind of a reinvention, all of you, or a next chapter for all of you. So, Lauren, how about if you start and tell us what your backstory is?
Okay. So let me go into my backstory about how I got into the improv comedy class. So my husband, who is my husband now, was not my husband. He was my boyfriend at the time, and we met, and he went off to do his postdoc in Washington State for 2 years. So while he was gone, being the industrious woman that I was, I decided to go to grad school. And so I went to grad school, and I got my master's.
No shortcuts for you, huh?
No, I was bored. I had free time, so my company paid for it. I'm going to go to grad school. So I went to grad school, and it took me about 2.5 years, 2005, 2007, yeah. And then when I was finished, because I was working full-time, I had all this free time, and I didn't know what to do with myself. And I had played saxophone for many, many years in different kinds of bands, like funk bands and rock bands, and my hearing started to go. And so I couldn't do music anymore without it being really painful. And I love being on stage, so I needed some other outlet. And I figured, I'm kind of witty and funny. I'll try improv comedy, and don't have a great memory. So
doing
stand-up, was not really my thing. So I went to improv, and that's how I picked that class, just because I wanted to be on stage. I wanted to do something fun and something where I didn't have to use my memory a lot. So
I could understand that. Yeah, and that would be fun. Yeah, especially if you like who you're doing it with. Yeah, when I see Teresa doing her thing and she memorizes everything, and it's the memorization and the delivery. Yeah, so
that's acting.
Yeah,
on top of everything else.
And Teresa, she's funny all by herself, but when she's performing, she has her routine. Mm-hmm. Dan, how about you? For you, You do something completely different during the day.
Yes. Yeah, I'm a higher ed administrator at Harcum College, so I oversee their international programs, and as part of that, I oversee their English as a second language program. Where I really got my start is I was actually a child actor. I did commercials, I did TV, I did radio. Eventually, my mom then became a working mom, couldn't really do the audition thing anymore, so moved into community theater, did theater through my teenage years, did it through college. And after college, I honestly got burned out from it. I wasn't feeling the same passion for it. And my best friends and I went to an improv comedy show in Philly, and my friend nudged me. He goes, "You should try this." And I was like, nah, there's no way. And it took me about a year before I finally built up the courage to take the class. And I took the first class, and it wasn't clicking with me. I didn't feel like I was getting it, but there was something about it. And I just took every single level I could. I read every book I could. And then eventually in 2006, joined my first improv comedy troupe. And now fast forward, I'm very lucky to be the director of this group and to perform with this group. I've performed and directed around the country. I teach this as well, which is a huge thrill for me, because so much of improv, going back to the transformational aspect, when I first started teaching it, I thought, perhaps naively, that most people wanted to just learn how to be funny. And what I was discovering is that people wanted to learn how to communicate, how to listen, how to break out of their own comfort zone. And so my class began to evolve from, okay, just do the ha-ha stuff, to this is how it can affect your life. This is how it can better your life. And I get just as much of a thrill teaching it these days as I do directing the troupe and performing it as well. I love it. It's my absolute passion.
Dan, I've thought about it as a trainer, that especially when I was doing corporate training, and there was somebody who used to call it infotainment, I think, and something had combining
infotainment.
Yes, like that. Thank you. Thanks, Lauren. And so I thought, well, maybe I should do that. I'm really good at doing. My brand of improv would be answering questions from especially those people who are in the class, and they want to just prove that they know more than you do.
Oh yeah.
And so it was like, so I could handle that most of the time pretty well, but I wasn't funny. I'm just not that funny. And so I thought, I'll do like improv, and it'll like help me break out of my thing. Or not improv, but comedy, or to do something like that, or acting or something. And I just never did.
And the beauty of improv is a lot of people think that it's all about wit, and there's certainly an aspect of that. But if you can listen and you can react, you can be a great improviser. It's really not as much about the wit as people think it is. It's about authenticity. And it sounds a little bit cheesy, but it's about reacting authentically to what your scene partner gives you.
I don't know. I have seen you perform, and I think it's about wit.
I
have a little wit.
You do have to have a little bit of wit, but the funniest moments really come from actual real reaction, even if it's within your character, to be able to react in a way that resonates with the audience. And what normally resonates is what's real.
Not to give us a plug or anything, but because we would never do that on radio.
I'm sure you never would.
We have been known to go out into the corporate world and give workshops. We've done it a few times. I work for Johnson & Johnson. We've done it a few times at Johnson & Johnson as a larger group, doing a performance and then breaking out into little work groups. And also just going in doing team building, doing improv as team building. So
I could see that would be,
it's a fabulous thing in the corporate world.
Interesting. Susan, how about you?
I'm the youngest of a big Irish Catholic family, so I think I was just looking for attention, and the stage was where I could get it, because they're all jumping and swinging from the chandelier, so I had to come out and do something a little differently. So I did not realize that comedy was actually something I could do. I'm a nurse. I'm a hospice nurse, so there's nothing really funny about my particular position. So I was looking for an outlet, and found this class, took this class, absolutely loved it, married my muse, making people laugh. This is the best. It is the greatest. And I would like to say something else, please, if I could. Sister Sebastian, 3rd grade.
See, I could tell you were raised by Catholic nuns.
Yeah, Irish Catholic, thank you. Catholic school. Miss Price, do you think you're funny? Yes, sister, I do. Yes, sister, I do. I'm on the radio, Sister Sebastian.
There you go. See, do you ever think about that? Both of you come from Catholic school?
Yeah.
See,
I'm Jewish.
So you didn't have the benefit of the nuns, and you became a comedian anyway.
I know. Jewish guilt is a great
same guilt. That's right.
Same guilt. Same guilt. Different gods.
I just wonder if those nuns knew that they were were the instigators of so much comedy and motivational speaking stuff.
See, I contend that they had no idea, because they had no real wit themselves. The other thing is midlife. Back in the day, there were 40 kids in a classroom, so it was all that they could do to keep them under control, and everybody was vying for attention, and who was falling asleep and who was tap dancing, and I was, of course, on top of the desk doing monologues. So I feel very badly looking back now that the nuns had to do that, had to put up with that, but at the same time, it gave me great foundation for my stage time.
I used to teach elementary school, and I had a shtick of my own whenever those kids used to be acting up, and I would get furious. I was never furious, but I would get furious, and I would go out and I would slam the door, and I would go to my grade partner across the hall. I said, I'm going to go down and have a cigarette. So could you just look at So you can get rid of that guilt, Susan.
But they're your future improvisers.
There you go.
There you go. And thank you for being part of that.
So, well, I learned that from the nuns. I didn't realize that's what they were doing until I started teaching. So, I saw you at the Kennett Flash in December, and I'd never seen an improv group before. And in fact, somebody asked that at the very beginning. Has anybody here never been to an improv? And I was like, there it was. But I watched you, and I was blown away by the fact that everything was dependent on the audience. So we're going to need to go to. I want to talk about this more after the break. But just before we go, explain to my listeners what it is that you do when you start out. Because you have no script, you have nothing.
Nothing. No script. I always say no script, no net. We know what games we're going to play. So if you've ever seen Whose Line Is It Anyway, it's that same type of concept. We go out, they're called short form improv games, 3 to 5 minute games that have some kind of gimmick to it. But each of those games requires a suggestion from the audience that we say inspires the scene. So they'll give us a suggestion of Alaska, and we'll do a scene, something related to Alaska. But a lot of what we do as well is have the audience actually participate in the games, and to me, that's the most fun. That's improv at its purest form, because we've worked with each other enough. We don't know what we're going to say, but we have a good read on each other, a good feel for each other. I have no idea what that audience volunteer is going to say, and that's the most fun, and that's the most challenging, but the best kind of challenge. And I think that's when really the best scenes come out, is when you're challenged like that.
Interesting. When I was there and they were they were saying some bizarre things, and I thought, well, I don't want to do this. You know? So when we come back, I want to talk about a little bit more about how you set that up, because I watched you. You had little pieces of paper, and you sent some people out of the theater, and they came back. So let's talk a little bit about that when we come back, and how you do that.
Sounds great.
So everybody hang in there, and we get ready for some good stuff, more good stuff with Better Than Bacon. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour.
Hi, this is Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. I trust you're enjoying my conversation with this fabulous, victorious woman. If you're getting inspired with ideas and feeling empowered, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's more for you. Tips, downloads, resources at the Victorious Woman Project. Go to victoriouswoman.com and look around and get on my mailing list so you can be the first to know about the newest good things I have for you. That's www.victoriouswoman.com.
Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with Better Than Bacon, the improv troupe, and three of Better Than Bacon's cast are here: Lauren Henry, Dan Stabb, and Susan Price. And we were talking about when I first saw you at the Kennett Flash, and it was my first improv experience. So, I watched. So let me go back and ask you this: do you practice? I mean, do you rehearse?
Every week.
So how
at my house.
At your house?
Yeah, in my living room.
And you're still married, huh?
My husband is very resourceful of getting out of the way and taking the dog with him.
Oh, that's a good thing. So how do you rehearse for something like this? Because you never know what's going on. How does rehearsal happen?
It's a lot. It's a few different things. When we're doing new games, we obviously want to rehearse the structure of the games, sort of discovering what are the tips and tricks that will help maximize the success of the game. But we also do a lot of, because every game is rooted in scene work, and there are definitely improv fundamentals that we want to make sure we hit. So a lot of it is just sort of honing our craft, and there are some rehearsals we won't do any games. We'll just do a 20-minute scene, and just to really focus on the listening and the reacting, and it builds the camaraderie too. And I think that's part of the reason, to Lauren's point, that we've stayed together so long. Is I think that rehearsal is such an important key to making sure we're the best group we can possibly be, by keeping that camaraderie among us that we're able to sustain.
Well, you know what else? I didn't see a lot of ego. I did, it didn't seem like one of you was trying to upstage the other one or anything like that.
So the whole tenet of improv comedy is yes and. So if somebody gives you an idea, you don't say no, you don't say yes but, you say yes and you build on it and build on it. And one thing that you learn, and one thing that I really liked about improv comedy versus stand-up comedy, is that you don't have to be the star all the time. And that for me was very difficult. Like, I like attention, I'm very outgoing, I like spotlight on me. But with improv comedy, there are times where I'm just as proud to set somebody up for the most amazing joke as I am for being the person that and
I saw that. I said, and it seems like you're all like that. It doesn't matter. Getting the laugh is the thing.
Right.
And it doesn't matter who's getting the laugh. Yeah, which was really neat. It was neat to watch.
Yeah, and it's not like we sit there and say, okay, Lauren got the laugh in this scene, so now it's my turn. We just go out there and we do the best scene work we possibly can and listen to each other. And sometimes, like Lauren said, it's okay to be the straight man. It's okay to be the straight woman, because what you're trying to do, your main goal is to put on the best scene possible. And sometimes that means you're putting the spotlight on somebody else, and we all get our turns. And again, nobody's keeping score. And I think that's I always tell my students, to truly be successful in improv, I think you have to be egoless. You have to be willing to say, okay, it's not my time.
Oh, even just to take that stuff from the audience, and I think I would have. I'm not big with ego, but to do so. So let me just ask you. So how do you do this so that my listeners know that when you go, you have pieces of paper and that sets up the scene.
Right.
Okay. So tell us how that works.
So we have. Before a few days before the show, I put together the set list. So it's the games that we're going to play for that particular show. So again, we know what games we're going to play, who's going to be in what game, and what we're going to ask from the audience. So it might be a location, it might be a relationship. Sometimes we'll go a little more esoteric with it. And then once we get that set list together, those note cards that you see are just because we take turns emceeing the games as well.
Right.
So everybody's a performer, everybody's an MC. It's us explaining the rules of the game to the audience, and it's also us getting the suggestion from the audience. Once we get that suggestion, so again, if we say give us a location, they say Alaska, the actors have about 2.2 seconds to start the scene.
Yes. And the other thing that I was thinking, for a couple of your sets, you send somebody out of the room.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be a lot of trust among all of you for that to happen.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because then they go out of the room, they have no idea what they're going to be walking back into.
And people will
think, they have to perform.
Oh, absolutely. And because they're normally guessing games, so there's something that the actor who's being sent out of the room doesn't know, and the actors on stage have to try to get that person to guess it. And a lot of times people are like, hey, do you really secretly listen in? And we don't.
No.
We really play it authentically. We don't know what it's
very funny. If you ever are at one of our shows and they send somebody out and you have to go to the bathroom or whatever, you'll see, and we sit there literally with our fingers in our ears going la 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 la, so we don't hear, because it's more fun for us to play the game if we don't know.
Interesting.
There's no fun in cheating, because then it's too easy for us, but we like the challenge of
very nice,
having to really do the game.
Yeah.
And I feel like in doing it, just the way Lauren's describing it, it makes it more organic. And it makes it more believable, and I think that gets the audience on your side. Because sometimes when you really don't know what the suggestion is, you struggle. Mm-hmm. And the audience just thrives on that, because they're just, come on, we're right there,
Because they're in on it. They know what the thing is that the actor has to guess. And I tell students, I tell our troupe, the audience is on our side. They paid their good money to see us. They're not rooting against us. They don't want to see us fail. So, but they like to see the struggle too. And when you overcome the struggle, you get that, okay, bravo. That was, I didn't know how you were going to pull it off, but you pulled it off.
Yeah, we couldn't figure out where you were going with that. Like something like that, because that's what and my spouse and I were watching like we were like that, because the audience they would ask the audience to set up a scene, and they would give you the strangest things.
Oh yeah.
And I guess the audience really likes to make it really hard. Like the stranger, they can give you stuff.
Right. I think they like the struggle, and I think they like to challenge us, especially because we've been together for so long. It's good to have that challenge and ramp it up a little bit, so that we're not constantly getting the easy way out. We have to bring our A game.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's validating for the audience too, when you take a suggestion that they think is a giant curveball that they're throwing at you, and you honor it in the best way you possibly can. Not only do they feel like that they've gotten their money's worth, but it also encourages other audience members to give suggestions too. So it raises that level of interactivity, where now everybody wants to be involved, because everybody wants to see, okay, how can I trip these guys up?
Yeah, and at certain events we have extra tickets, and we will give one away for the best suggestion of the night.
Oh, so, that happened when I was there.
It's
your Christmas show at Kennett Flash, yes.
So we have the audience strive to give us something unusual.
Interesting. And you know what? There are several of your, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me there are several of your troupe who are teachers. Are they teachers?
I teach. We've had a few who have been teachers.
Yeah, but we do a whole bunch of, we all do different things.
Like, what kind of things do you do? What?
Susan's a nurse.
I'm a registered nurse.
You're hospice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I work for an ESL program. Yeah.
Yes, I work at Johnson & Johnson doing a number of things, but we'll say project management for the
And what about the other? What about some of the others? Because I'm thinking that some of my listeners might have some of these things and want an out. Like want an escape valve.
I'm going to say improv was my out, and I found it, and I was so relieved and so grateful that there were people that could think the way I did and that would act silly the way I did, and that it was socially acceptable. Like, nobody looks at you cross-eyed when you're worried about, who did what on the front stage of this with the dinosaur or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I think it's encouraging. Because it lets you be among like-minded people, and you don't have to feel out of place or different.
So we have a sales guy. We have a guy that runs a couple businesses. Mm-hmm. We have a medical writer. I'm not quite sure. What does Brett do? We don't know what Brett does, but he does something.
But he shows up for rehearsal.
Yeah, very good at that job.
Amy, we only have 4 girls in the troupe, but Amy, another one who's making her midlife change, is finishing up nursing school. Yeah, and so we have all sorts of different careers. We don't really have a lot of careers in common.
Yeah, there isn't like a standard career that lends itself to improv.
No, just a standard kind of person maybe.
Yeah. So when, I guess I want to know, what gives you the nerve to do this? It really takes a lot to go and then have people throw something at you. And
I think because and it's what Lauren had said before, it's always new. That's the fun of it for me. I think that was...
Yeah, but you know what I want to know, and Susan, maybe you had your hand up. She went to Catholic school, I could tell. Star. But like something must happen in your head.
Something snaps in your head, yes, and I think that it's a good snap. It's you have to have no filters and you have to have no boundaries, and I can only take it from myself. When you're from a big family and everybody's loud and everybody's making their mark, you have to do it too. So I feel like I got trained from birth that this was just the way it was supposed to be. And the fact that I have other people around me doing it that are not related to me is so awesome. You have no idea.
There's no emotional charge to it, huh?
Yeah, there really is. It's awesome. So I think part of it is no filter. I think part of it is, when you're in a scene discussing something with another character on stage, how does it affect you? What just happened? Are you happy? Are you sad? Run with it. Like, just pick one aspect and run amok. Just have no inhibitions.
I didn't see this when I saw you at the Kennett Flash, but do you ever just thud?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. That was unanimous, but yeah. Yeah, nobody bats 1,000.
Yeah, we're lucky in the fact that we do short form, which means that our scenes are typically 3 to 5 minutes long. Mm-hmm. So if you thud for 3 to 5 minutes, and then somebody else comes in and hopefully does something fabulous
and
after
then you move on.
And you move on, and it's very quick, and we try not to dwell on anything. That was kind of one of the first things that we learned was just, as everybody who has a kid that ever watched Frozen knows, just let it go and move on. And so that I think we've gotten fairly good at that, of not letting it drag us down if we, we messed up, okay, but we have another scene in 5 minutes, so get over it and keep moving.
And that's how I always put it. To me, when I have a great scene, it's something I can look back and frame on the wall and say, that was a great scene. When it's a bad scene, I just throw it away. And I just move forward. And I think so much of improv, partially to answer your other question, is that you learn to embrace failure. Because you sort of, the more you do this, you inherently know we're not going to bat 1,000. Not every single thing is going to be a success. But it's how you move forward, how you persist, and you realize that, okay, I had a bad scene. What's next? And we just move forward.
So it's almost like good practice for life,
Absolutely.
to let it go, move on.
Yep.
And embrace that failure, so that I guess I would think if you're embracing the failure, then you're not so afraid to make mistakes and you can take more risks.
And that's exactly it. That's because you go up there and you're willing to take chances. You're willing to just try something, knowing it might not work, but it's freeing to know that it might not work. But when it does, it's the best feeling in the world for somebody like what we do.
Mm-hmm. We have to take a break, so we're going to go to break. But now I've just used up that minute that you told me that I had. So let's go to break, and when we come back, I have more questions I want to ask Better Than Bacon, Lauren Henry, Dan Stapp, and Susan Price. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour.
Are you one of those women who lived the first part of your life as a really good girl? That is, you did all the right things and followed all the so-called rules for women? I was like that too. But have you noticed that once you passed 40, you have less patience for those rules? Maybe you even think that the rules really don't make sense for you anymore. Maybe they never did and you just didn't realize it. Do you want to go where other recovering good girls meet to inspire each other and support their new empowered selves? Then join me, Annmarie Kelly, and some very fabulous Victorious Women. We're on Facebook at the Victorious Woman Project. So go to facebook.com/Victorious Woman Project. I'll talk to you there.
Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with Better Than Bacon's Lauren Henry, Dan Stapp, and Susan Price. And during the break, I forgot to ask, my spouse Joseph asked me to ask them how they got that name, Better Than Bacon. And apparently it's a good story. So tell me, how did you get the name Better Than Bacon?
We had been rehearsing probably 7 or 8 months, and we were finally ready to get to the point where we were going to perform, and then we realized, oh, right, we need a name. And so I think I literally created a Survey Monkey poll, and everybody got to contribute whatever name they wanted, and Lauren Henry is the one that came up with Better Than Bacon. So I don't know where did you come up with it? I don't even think I ever actually knew.
I think it was
were you having breakfast?
No. I just was thinking of kind of nonsensical things that we could name our troupe that didn't have anything to do with comedy and didn't have anything to do with being funny, but was funny in and of itself. And I was like, Better Than Bacon, because there's really nothing better than bacon except maybe more bacon and us. So, yeah,
there you go. So that's where it came from.
Yeah, and we had a poll with a whole bunch of different names, and that name won. And then I got to make our little pig logo. I don't know if you have our logo up anywhere, but we have a little purple pig logo, and I created all that.
Huh.
So.
Oh, you're a real artist, huh?
Yeah. Deep down inside of this corporate body lies the soul of an artist.
Lauren's loving this because she was in radio, and is that how you?
Yeah, I was a radio and television major in college, and I was a professional DJ for a couple of years.
So she's ready to kick Fred out, so she can
ready to take over the board. Station.
Yeah. Tell me about your audiences, like I know from training, like sometimes you have a class and they're just really connected to you, and other times you just can't get any headway. What do you do? How often do both of those happen?
I think by and large we have good audiences. What I always try to emphasize is that no matter what, whether you have 3 people, 30 people, or 300 people, they all paid. They all paid to see the show. And even if they didn't pay, they've invested their time to see the show. So you give them the same high-quality show, the best quality show you possibly can every single time. A smaller crowd can be tricky because a lot of times if you only have 5 or 10 people in the audience, nobody wants to laugh or nobody wants to be the one person to laugh. Oh. So they're laughing inside. But if we are relying on the laugh as the barometer, which we shouldn't do, then we're going to be in for a rude awakening when it seems to be deafening silence. There are definitely trickier crowds, for sure, crowds that might throw you more risque suggestions, and sometimes the venue is not necessarily appropriate for that, so you have to find a way to kindly diffuse that.
So wait, you have times when you do go in you do have venues where you can be more risque?
We try to really play PG-13 as best as we can. It slips. Sometimes things go closer to our territory, but that's not really how we typically like to play. But there are certainly and again, it's part of that aspect where you don't really have control over what the audience is going to say or do. We had started a series at a new venue a couple of years ago, and none of the first 5 or 6 suggestions I can say on the radio. But it was like, okay, I heard, and you just hear something else. Whatever other suggestion you heard way out in the corner.
Like anything else.
Was a much better suggestion than whatever else you got.
Oh, and do audiences try and trip you up that way?
Yeah. But it's fun for them, and it's fun for us. to try to rise to that and to try to play off of that the best we can.
Now, I think with any kind of acting or any kind of comedy, the energy in the room and the energy of the group really plays a big part. So if the audience is kind of low energy, then we try to go out there with extra energy to pick them up and get them all on the same level that we're on. And vice versa, if we're feeling a little bit, but the audience is really pumped, they'll pick us right up. So it's a whole thing of dealing with that energy in the room and trying to keep it up and keep people happy and smiling.
I can identify with that, and you do training, so you know too. It's like sometimes you go in and if they're really connected to you, then you're even better.
You got them. You got them. If you can get the audience with you within 15 or 30 seconds, you got them.
And it is that fast.
And it is that fast. If you can get them in that time frame, you got them. If not, sometimes you can pick them up later, but sometimes you can't. So you have to, like to Lauren's point, you have to match the energy and bring it up a notch, I find, too, that I tend to, when it's a quiet audience, I come from a stand-up stage at one point. I heckle the audience members. You know, I'll go tap somebody. Sir, you're
sweet.
Sir, you're snoring.
So deceiving.
Sir, you're snoring. That is so. Do you see this guy drooling on himself? And so it kind of gets them going. And then they start watching their P's and Q's because they don't want to get called on the carpet on sleeping or snoring or talking or texting on their phone or whatever. They tend to be more engaging with you. So.
And you're a hospice nurse.
And I take wonderful care of my patients.
One of the cool things is that we've been around long enough now that we have groupies. So we have, specific group of people that come to almost every Kennett Square kind of flash show that we do. And that's pretty cool. And, they know us well enough that they're trying to throw us some really hard suggestions.
Because I guess they know that you'll rise up to it. But do you have any horror stories?
Yeah.
No.
Every show has been perfect.
It has been.
Yeah, no, we had one show, and I'm going to be pretty particular about how I describe this. So we did a fundraiser, and they already know the story. And
they're already laughing hysterically.
Yeah. So we did a fundraiser, and we did not know that there were going to be speeches as part of this fundraiser, and we did not know that these speeches were going to be really, really sad, and that there were going to be about 10 of them. So, and each speech sort of got progressively worse than the other, and then finally it was, and now better than bacon.
And we were like,
oh my goodness.
And that was probably the coldest, toughest, and this is by no means a critique of the crowd or even a critique of the venue. It was a really good cause, a really noble cause. I have nothing bad to say, but from a performer standpoint, it was extremely tricky, and the funniest part is nobody cared. Like once we finally went out to do the show, nobody was looking at us. No. Nobody was paying attention to us. We were told we were going to have microphones. We had no microphones, so it was
really funny too, because Dan does a set list for us every time, and he's sitting there, and as the speeches are going on, he's like, not doing that game, not crossing them off.
Oh my goodness!
I think we went from a 45-minute show to about a 15-minute show pretty quickly.
It was so funny.
But it was one at the time. It was, how are we getting out of this? And we just, to me, everything has a beginning and an end. The show was going to be over at some point. It might have been over quicker than we had anticipated it would be. But again, these are stories you get to tell later on.
Right. So what do you do? Like when it seems to me, and I've only seen you once so far, but there's maybe 3 or 4 people on a stage at a time, so the rest of you are in the back. So when you have something like that, what do you say to each other? Like, how do you signal each other? Do you just talk to each other in the back, or what do you do?
A few things. We will communicate in the back. There are other venues where we will be all on the stage at the same time, and I might whisper, okay, we're cutting Jeopardy, or we're going to make sure this game is really short. A lot of it is constantly gauging the audience's energy throughout the show to see if you have to adapt. I mean, we'll improvise the improv sometimes and even change a game that was scheduled based on how how we're reading the audience at any given point. But we're always talking, we're always communicating, even if it's a quick whisper to one another. We'll definitely keep in communicado that way.
And I didn't see any of that, so I was wondering when you went backstage, like what do you say to each other backstage? But
we eat M&Ms.
You eat M&Ms?
Yeah.
We say, let me look at the set list. Do I have enough time to hit the restroom?
That's good.
Right back. And we're right back.
We're not that exciting backstage.
Yeah.
You would think it would be glamorous. Not so much. M&Ms and restroom runs.
So that took us on backstage. Well, it doesn't surprise me. Lauren was telling me that you are now the resident comedy troupe for Uptown, our new performing arts center. And also, you perform other places. You're still at the Kennett Flash.
Yes, we perform the second Thursday of every month at the Kennett Flash. We also have a bi-monthly show at Penn's Place, which is in Newcastle, Delaware. So we have pretty much 24 shows booked already for 2017, which is nice. It's nice to know we know what our gigs are going to be, and we're still adding more, which is a really cool thing. And after doing this for so many years, it's validating too to know that we have these regular performance spaces in these different areas.
And you're going to be at Uptown next Friday, the 27th.
Yes.
Correct. And Dan, you have a special code for our listeners to get a couple dollars off.
I do. So if you go to uptownwestchester.org, that is the homepage for Uptown, for the next 24 hours, if you go under tickets and info and you go to our Better Than Bacon event on January 27th, if you type in the code, this is a tricky one, WCHE, that is the $2 discount code that you'll be able to enter, so it'll be $13 instead of $15 for the show.
And I can tell, because I know it's just a lot of fun. And you're a lot of fun, and you've been a lot of fun today. Thank you so much.
It's been our pleasure.
Three of you. I'm so glad that you did. No, well, Victory Chicks and you guys, thanks for coming to Happy Hour today, and I'm glad you did, and have a great weekend. And if you think things are getting tough at work, just think about all those members of the new cabinet who have been getting grilled by Congress for their new position and sitting for hours after hour, with Congress asking them terrible questions. Not terrible for their jobs, but just terrible. And I can't think of a lot of things I would like to do less. And I don't know how they sit there for 8 or 10 hours and not have to go to the bathroom. I'd be wiggling in my seat so much I wouldn't even be able to think straight. So I'm glad I'm not there. But I'll tell you who I was sending good thoughts to today, and you're going to be surprised. If you've been listening to me, you'll know. You'll be surprised. I was sending good thoughts to Hillary Clinton. Because can you imagine what it must have been like for her to sit through the inauguration and be in the seats instead of being the one to raise her hand and be sworn in? I don't care if you liked her or not. That had to be hard, and it took some nerve, and more nerve than I think I have. So she was there and pasted a smile on her face and was more graceful than I'm sure I would have been. So kudos to Hillary Clinton. I wouldn't have been glad to have been there, but I have been glad to be here with you. And I'll be here next Friday at 3 o'clock, and you and I can do Happy Hour again. I have a quote from Condoleezza Rice, who says, "The essence of America, that which really unites us, is not ethnicity or nationality or religion. It is an idea. And what an idea it is, that you can come from humble circumstances and do great things." Victory Chicks and you guys, I believe in that, and I hope you do too. And that you do great things with your family, in your community, and through your own indomitable spirit. I'll talk to you next week. Have a great weekend. Chen's on.
Thanks for listening to this Friday Happy Hour. Make sure you subscribe, rate and review today's show. And join us again next week for the Friday Happy Hour with Annmarie Kelly.